Hiya folks, JD here, and today this is a slightly different video I wanted to start doing. Now this particular quadcopter that we've been looking at this week is the X46G, and on the whole I'm very happy with it, although there are a couple of things which are, well, not great, and I wanted to put these down in a separate video before I come across and do the final thoughts video in the next couple of days. Now the reason for this is because I wanted to just outline the negatives of this particular quadcopter and the things that are bugging me so far. There's not a lot, but they are quite niggly. Now, first of all, if you haven't caught up with this particular type of quadcopter that we're looking at now and you want to, you'll find all the links in the description for this particular quadcopter showcase for this week. Now, the X46G is a folding 4K 1080p 5G quadcopter. So it takes photos at 4K, it takes video at 1080p, although it's not true 4K and it's not true 1080. The lens and the sensor are pretty bad. There's a bit of jello on the video, and that's just simply because there's no gimbal. So there's no gimbal to sort of soften and to absorb that extra vibration coming in from the propeller arms, and as a consequence you can see a little bit of jello. Now I haven't recorded a lot of true video from this, only about 4 minutes worth, and that's what you're looking at right now, and that is quite simply because this is point number one in this particular video, is that the app the signal kept on failing. So what that means is my Wi-Fi reception kept on failing directly from my iPhone 8 to the quadcopter. Now my iPhone 8 is the iPhone I use for pretty much every review that I've ever done. Yes, I swap it now and again with an Android device, well, two particular Android devices that I have. And I find that on the whole, the iPhone does a very, very good job, unless there's an app which is underdeveloped or there's some other problem. Now, the problem here is quite simply, I've done a couple of frequency tests in the house, and walking away from the quadcopter using an app which can actually tell you the level of Wi-Fi signal that you have from its main source. Now, in me doing this, I can see that the Wi-Fi module built into the camera is actually very underpowered. So it's not actually providing a good level of signal and or service right the way through for this quad. Now, I could get the quad to about 50 meters and then I would lose all Wi-Fi totally. It wasn't as if I could even turn it around and bring it back and then it would reconnect. It would just stay disconnected. Now, it's not really that much of a big deal for me because I'm a line of sight flyer anyway. I always have been, but I know some people rely heavily on the app, and also I rely a little bit heavily on that app just to do a couple of distance flights. Even anything over 150, 200 meters, you still have to have a very good working app in order to ensure you can bring the quadcopter back. Yes, okay, you have returned to home, but you shouldn't be using that as your be-all and end-all to ensure your quad gets home safely. So that's number one, just the Wi-Fi signal. Number two is the app. The app itself could do with a few more pointers. Now overall, this app works pretty well. The H-Fun Plus app we've seen on no end of other quadcopters. I've done a separate video on it. I think I've flown it with 3 or 4 different quads, and essentially it works very well. Apart from when you come to calibrate. So you have a telemetry screen on your transmitter. You also have obviously the full screen of your app there. Usually with a lot of apps, you come to calibrate and the app says twist the quadcopter this way, or calibration in progress, or calibrate before you fly, something along those lines. This doesn't tell you squat. So quite literally, you have a quadcopter, you have a couple of flashing lights, you have to remember what the manual says and the standard configuration movements, which are pretty standard for most quadcopters out there, GPS quadcopters out there. It just sets the longitude and latitude, that's it, as your return to home basis, as well as to ensure that your satellites can bind to the GPS module as well and ensure that you have extra stable flight. Now, when you do calibrate, you have to quite literally keep your finger on the polarity button, the calibration button on the transmitter. Then you can perform that calibration process and you can fly then after a couple of minutes. It's very simple, very straightforward, as long as you've read the manual beforehand and you know exactly what to do when, because the app won't give you any help whatsoever. That's number two. Now, I pretty much think I've got a list in front of me here which I have been writing stuff down on after reviewing the flight footage from today, and I genuinely can't think of anything else that really bugs me. Oh yes, there's one other point that I haven't written down. Point number 3 and the last point, and that is, as you would have seen in the first 2 videos, I struggled to lower the quadcopter. So when you accelerate with the quadcopter, you use the left analog stick, you jam it up anywhere between 50%, which is its 0%, and also up to 100. So you have different motions in order to give the quadcopter more pace as it's throttling up. Then likewise, it's the reverse when you bring it back down. So you just push down anywhere between 50% and 100, or 50% and 0 to be accurate, and then the quadcopter then lowers itself. What I found with this quad, it lowers itself so slowly. It's such a gradual decline in altitude that it can look as if the quadcopter's not actually moving. Now, I said about 3 or 4 times in the first video, this thing just isn't moving. And it is. It's just moving so ridiculously slow you can't see it. So when I stopped with the air brake and I was up at I think 22, 23 meters, and then I lowered the quad, for the first couple of seconds I couldn't see it lower. So I took my finger off the throttle, I jammed it back down again to 0, and again I couldn't see it. If I kept my thumb on that throttle, the quadcopter would move down. Now it's just a sticking point, no pun intended, but at the same time it's a little bit annoying. I like to be in control of my quadcopter's ascent and my quadcopter's descent, and I don't expect the quadcopter to do a lot with that. Now this gives me the impression that there was a moment in the first video of, oh god, the quadcopter's stuck. I'm going to have to hit the emergency stop and just let the quadcopter fall to the ground. So it's not great. It's a niggly point, but it's a point you might very well face. Now that being said, it's just a niggle, it is, but it's enough. After I've flown all these different types of quadcopters over the years, it's enough to make me think, oh god, it's broken. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. If I'd had a bit more patience, then the quadcopter would have lowered itself, as I showed in the first 2 videos anyway. And that's it. Those are my niggles. Some of them are very basic. I think it could be ironed out remarkably easy, but at the same time, they're niggles that I came across. So if you have the same quad, if you've ordered it, if you are going to buy it, if you're not going to buy it, and if you do want to know what those niggles are, these are the ones that I've come across so far. Now, so far, I think I've flown this 4 times, and every single time I've flown it, those niggles have come out to bite me. And as I said, if I didn't make you aware of them, I think I'd be doing a disservice. So there we are, my friends. I hope this video has helped you in some way, shape or form. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening. I've been JD. You've been fantastic as always. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and ring that bell too. Hello and welcome to all the new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the channel. So until next time, my friends, happy flying.